Friends, good evening. Thank you so much for being here into our Gnostic lab of practical application. Our subject matter tonight is called Sophistries of Distraction. This is a remarkable subject, particularly when we're looking at comprehending the ego. Last night, as we were sharing material with our intermediate level students in our first chamber, we were speaking about the consequences of the creation of the ego. Of course, as we are having conversations about the subject matter on the super dynamic of love and the works in the flaming forge of Vulcan. We're saying that when we see an ego being developed, the ego is not just that one thing that you will target with your mind and invoke the Divine Mother to go out and eliminate it. When Samael is speaking about comprehending the ego at the 49 levels of the mind, he is speaking about a thorough comprehension. Let's keep in mind that 4 plus 9 equals 13. And 13 is the arcanum of death. That death that leads into a second birth, the death that is the instrument of our transformation. And when an ego is created, well, not only the ego manifests through the personality and the physical body, the ego has an element of vitality that it's taking away from you. And we know this because it will take your creative energy and send it down ways where it shouldn't go, and the ego will nourish itself. It also has an element that is emotional. If we speak in perhaps superior terms, we could say astral. And it has elements that are also mental. And it also has elements that are causal in nature. So the ego is present in all of these different manifestations. And we need to understand what invites it into action, how it thinks, how it feels, how it behaves in the body, so that with that comprehension that we can truly eliminate it. Now, we have also said before that the ego is very clever. We have stated many times that when we're dealing with these egos, that these egos are never threatening. They are always very enticing. They give us a false sense of security, like we can always dominate them. But the moment that they lead us into identifying and we fascinate with the circumstances, at that moment we fall into the sleep of consciousness and the ego continues triumphant. So we have to understand better the clever methods in which the ego operates. And the purpose of our exercise and our conversation tonight is exactly that. This is one more layer of understanding into our psychological aggregates. And this is why we speak tonight of sophistries of distraction. Now, this word sophistry is very interesting. Sophistry means fallacious or false reasoning. This is a false reasoning. This is a reasoning that is incorrect. This is the use of the logic of the intellect and the ability to reach conclusions that is, plain and simple, wrong. This is what is a sophistry. Now, depending on where you may read the translations, you may see that in some writings it says sophism, and in others it will read sophistry. We wanted to understand this difference because why would we have two different words for the same material in English? It so happens that the experts in language, those linguists who work with the Century Dictionary, have clarified this for us. And they say sophistry applies to reasoning as a sophism applies to a single argument. And because we are dealing here with the ego, and we are dealing here with an entity that is devilish in nature and that would look for any possible way to deceive, contradict, and create confusion, certainly we are better off focusing on how is it that this applies to reasoning. And thus, this is why we speak in terms of sophistries of distraction. So if we're saying a sophistry of distraction, we are saying then that there is a false reasoning that is keeping us focusing our attention somewhere else, and as a consequence we are perpetuating our mistakes, and the root behind this is the ego itself. We need to understand these false reasonings, and you know these very well. You understand these phenomenally well, and maybe you think that you don't, but now that we will show you, you will see that indeed you do. Let me show you this example. Imagine that you see yourself at some moment in your life when you have openly and publicly insulted someone. You could have insulted someone in a way that was very violent, or you could have insulted someone in a way that was cynical and sarcastic. But as you do this, see yourself at that particular instant where as you did this, you justified that degree of cruelty and you classified it as severity, not cruelty, and your justification was, all I am doing is trying to help. If I don't shock him, he will continue making those mistakes. This is one of those examples. Whenever someone sees themselves insulting, publicly degrading, humiliating somebody else, and they are justifying it as an act of kindness, as a favor, that right there, that thought is false reasoning, and that is a sophistry of distraction. But maybe you have never done this. So look at this other example. If you have been a parent, or, well, all of us have been children at some point, and many of us had parents that were very aggressive with their means and ways of educating. So when a parent is frustrated, when a parent is angry, and they take their frustrations on the child, and they whip the child with a belt, or they squeeze them too hard, or they shake them, or they scream at them, and they justify the outburst of anger directed towards the child with false love. And they think this is not cruelty, it is that they just need tough love. This is a sophistry of distraction. We all know very well that violence only engenders violence. We know that wars have not really resolved any problems at all. We know that the conflicts that we have at home, if they are not addressed with the fire of love, with the candor of humbleness and compassion, we know that all those conflicts will leave behind seeds of resentment that eventually will create situations that are very difficult to handle. So if we direct our frustrations and we justify it against someone else by saying that we are just being that cruel, masked as severe, because we're offering tough love, that is more false reasoning. That is a sophistry of distraction. But maybe that example does not resonate with you. So what about this? How about those people who think, oh, I am not jealous, but all along they're constantly checking and looking after their quote-unquote loved one. And they want to see who they are talking to on the phone, with whom they are exchanging messages, with whom they are exchanging pictures. Where is it that the likes and the shares are going in their social media? So we can try to fool ourselves in one way. But if we are behaving in a way that is completely opposite of what we think that we are doing, well, evidently, what we find in there is a sophistry of distraction. It is false reasoning that continues to perpetuate the jealousness. False reasoning that continues to perpetuate the abuse and the cruelty. False reasoning that continues to perpetuate our cynicisms, our sarcasms, etc. And these sophistries of distraction, because they are part of the ego, and anyone who is not a master of perfection still has ego, well, we will find these sophistries everywhere. Samael says there are great masters who reach the fifth initiation of major mysteries. And after they get there, they fall because of some mental construct, because of some mental formation that they had that they failed to address. This is how dangerous is the work. So for those who are spiritual leaders, for those who are seeking to just bring congregations and speak to them about the next life and how to get there, well, there are many of them who think that they are a humble spiritual leader. And they may speak of themselves in this way, and they may think of themselves in this way. But when we see their actions, we can see how they use their charm to take advantage of others. And they will take advantage of others emotionally, mentally, even financially. And for as long as they continue to justify that leeching of the riches and the time and the emotions of people because they are humble spiritual leaders, well, we see that in there is hidden that false reasoning that is indeed a sophistry of distraction. We see these sophistries in anyone who would openly state that they are a loving person. Anyone who thinks that they are a good person, that they are a good friend, a good son, a good father. But whenever they don't like the circumstances, in silence, they wish that the other person were dead. In silence, they wish the other person would fail. In silence, they wish the other person will pay a high price for whatever it is that they are doing. So on the outside, we see all of these considerations, and on the inside, we see this cruelty, this abuse. And it is indeed the sophistry of distraction what continues to perpetuate the mistake. Because the sophistry then becomes a filter that does not allow your, for example, intellect to see and detect the wrong that is there. It is the equivalent of the enemy jamming the radar signal so that you cannot see when the others are coming in to attack you. We need to be able to see these sophistries of distraction. We must be able to detect them so that we can see exactly what is hiding behind that cover. And when we see it, it is likely that we will not like it. But it is also true that if we do not judge it, if we seek to comprehend it, we can invoke of the power of our Divine Mother and see it brought into a cosmic dust. We can see that ego eliminated, the consciousness that was trapped in there liberated once again, and as that consciousness comes together once again, it continues to grow and grow until we have what is known as a permanent center of consciousness. Friends, these are the sophistries of distraction. These are false reasonings that perpetuate the mistake, the cruelty, the wrongdoings of the ego. And our job is to get rid of that. For us to get rid of that, we have to do just a few things. The first thing is that we have to make the mistake of being self-divisive. There are many students who see themselves and pretend to see the ego as if the ego were something outside of them, as if the ego were disconnected from them. And this is a tremendous mistake. We can see this whenever people start speaking in terms of me and my ego, or my ego of anger did this, or my ego of pride did this, or my ego of gluttony ate that. When we start creating this divisiveness, it becomes very difficult to do this. Because on one hand, you are seeing the ego as something that is out there, and because it's out there, it is okay for it to be bad because it's there. It's not here because in here, everything that it's here is good. And that is a fallacy. We have to start speaking in terms of, I am angry, not me and my anger. I am angry. Or we have to speak in terms of, I am prideful, or my vanity, or we have to speak of me being this creature with so much vanity. This is how we have to speak in terms of. We cannot create distance between ourselves and the ego. We have to realize that that is an intrinsic part of what we are carrying within our psyche today. And when we assume that level of ownership, it is then that we can assume that level of responsibility. And with responsibility, we can then methodically work to eliminate these defects. So let's not be divisive with our own selves. Let's realize that these sophistries have come with us life after life after life. And as a consequence, they are what Samael refers to as the filth of our past. These sophistries of distraction are the internal contents of the Pharisee. They are what enable that perception of being so good, and that is only a projection towards the outside, while the inside, everything is rotten. Everything is filthy. So we will invite you, if you don't have one, to get a Gnostic journal. Get a good notebook and use it as your Gnostic journal and keep it private. And in your Gnostic journal, create your list of sophistries. That is going to be your homework from this moment forward. And for us to be able to initiate this exercise, we're going to start by relaxing the body. We're going to do an exercise of retrospection. And let's see where in your day today you find a false reasoning. Where is it that you find yourself with these false concepts that make pretend that you are this or that, while in reality your actions are different. Let's not forget, Samael says, it is through their actions that you will recognize them. Just like we recognize the tree by the fruit it bears, it is through the actions that we can recognize all those who are indeed sincerely righteous. So, sophistries are the filth of our past, and we are here to discover them. Let's go ahead and start by sitting comfortably in our chairs. I will invite you to allow your feet to rest flat on the floor and to close your eyes. Let's go ahead and take a deep breath in 1, 2. We breathe in through our nose in 1, 2. With every exhalation, allow your body just to sink a little deeper onto that chair. 1, 2. Let's make ourselves aware of our physical body. If you notice that there's anything that feels a little distracting in whatever you're wearing, maybe your shoes, your socks, your belt, your watch. If you have a hat or a ponytail, your glasses, your earrings, rings on your fingers, etc. This is a good moment, if that is distracting you, just to take it off and set it aside. The purpose here is to minimize sensations coming into the body. As we have done this, we take another deep breath in 1, 2. 1, 2. And let's go ahead and make ourselves aware of our emotional state. Throughout the day, throughout the week, the month, the year, throughout our life, we have consistently demonstrated our own most prevalent emotional state. For some people, that is a manifestation of certain fear because of insecurities, etc. For others, it could be an emotional state of aggressiveness, frustration, anger. You look at them and you can see it in their eyes. For others, well, we may see ourselves walking around just believing that we are so great, simply because there is an internal psychological song that sings some song associated to our pride. We all have a primary psychological trait. That primary psychological trait has a deep impact in our thoughts, in our sentiments, and our actions. If our primary psychological trait is that of vanity, pride, it would be very easy for someone just to elate us and for us to be at the top of the world, and 5 minutes later for somebody to insult us, and for us to precipitate ourselves into a state of sadness and even depression. If we have a primary psychological trait of anger, well, then we will tend to see everything as if everything were a conflict. And even the best actions of our closest, most loving friends could be perceived as an attack. If we have a primary psychological trait of lust, and we see ourselves in a restaurant and suddenly the waiter or the waitress gives us a smile, we could easily mistake their effort to provide a good service for some kind of morbid interest in us. It is important that we realize what is our primary psychological trait. And it is important that we can recognize what is then our most prevalent emotional state. As much as how are we feeling emotionally at this present moment. And what is important here is to not identify with that. What is important here is for us to not become caught up with whether it's pride or anger or lust or vanity, self-consideration or ambition. What is important is that we identify, that we can see it. Because the moment we can see it, it no longer can hide from us. The moment we can observe it, we can study it. And as we do that, we can comprehend it. And it is through observation and comprehension that we can reach a state where we can invoke our mother, our divine mother Kundalini, and beg of her to eliminate that defect. So whatever is our emotional state right now, let's make ourselves offer our innermost just a gentle smile. And in gratitude, gratefulness, and satisfaction, just acknowledge what is that emotional state. Because we know that like the flow and the tides, it just comes and goes. Like a pendulum, today we're sad, and we know that later on we will be happy. And there's no reason to have any attachments. We are better off not setting any objections. And with this level of gratitude, as we feel that that burden has been removed from our shoulders, we take another deep breath in 1, 2, 1, 2. And we make ourselves ready for this exercise by singing the mantra Glim Krishnaya. Glim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopihana Vaya Vaya Swaha. For practice, let's say it again. Glim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopihana Vaya Vaya Swaha. For the effect of good practice, let's say it again. Glim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopihana Vaya Vaya Swaha. Use your objective imagination and unite that with your willpower so that you can see yourself protected by this circle of light. A light that carries the shape of a flaming star and keeps at bay inferior thoughts, inferior emotions, any lingering, tenebrous entity that may be wandering around, so that they cannot interfere with the work. And as we do this, we invoke of our innermost by saying, Divine Father, Father of mine, you who are my true being, you who are my eternal God, I am here humbly at your presence, asking of you and begging of you, with my soul and my heart, for your contribution. Awaken, Father, that faculty of clairvoyance, so that we may see the thing itself and not become distracted with the appearance of things. Grant us, Divine Father, the opportunity to experience that pure power of intuition, so that we may capture the significance and the reason of things without having to rely on the thinking process of the mind. Give us, Father, the faculty of inspiration, so that we may see the spiritual reality of that which we perceive. We ask that it is you, the one who officiates in this practice. We ask that you guide us, and that you show us with the utmost clarity, so that it is clear beyond any doubt that what we must perceive, that we perceive it, and with the certainty that it comes from you. We ask of this in your holy name. So be it. And we bring the attention of our consciousness to our feet, specifically to our toes. And we allow the consciousness to perceive our toes, our heels, our ankles, our shins, and our knees. And just like that, instantaneously, we immediately feel that softness that comes from a deep state of relaxation. And we experience it with gratitude and gratefulness. We know that this is what being relaxed is like, so we don't identify with it. We focus on our breathing, and we take again a deep breath in 1, 2. And we bring the attention of our consciousness to our knees, the underside of our thighs. And we perceive that sensation of relaxation expanding along our thighs, upwards towards our hips, our glutes, and we feel that relaxation reach the very base of our spine. We continue focused on our breathing. We start noticing that our breathing allows for that flow of breath effortlessly. That it is so slowly becoming so silent. And as we perceive this with gratitude, we once again bring the attention of our consciousness back to the very base of our spine. And from there we perceive that sensation of relaxation expanding alongside our hips, relaxing our creative organs. And as that attention of the consciousness continues to rise up our spine, one vertebra at a time, we start feeling how that relaxation slowly populates our abdomen, And we start experiencing that relaxation in our internal organs. We bring back the attention to our breath. And we breathe in 1, 2. And that attention of the consciousness continues to rise. And we feel that relaxation reaching the middle of our torso, our stomach, our liver, our spleen, our pancreas, our heart, our lungs, and as that attention of the consciousness continues to rise from between our shoulder blades and our back, upwards 1 vertebra at a time, we start feeling that relaxation on our chest, our shoulders, and the base of our neck. And from there, that sensation simply cascades from our shoulders to our elbows, from our elbows to our wrists, into our hands, and out our fingers. Give yourself a moment to perceive the gentle vibration that permeates throughout all of your body. Feel that gentle sensation of softness that is just an effect of being deeply relaxed. And we experience this with much gratitude and allow the attention of our consciousness to focus on that space at the base of our skull, behind our head and right in between the ears, is to focus its attention right there. Notice what you perceive at that location, at the base of your skull. And without identifying with it, allow that attention of the consciousness to continue expanding and growing along the sides of our head. And we relax the muscles of our jaw, our tongue, our lips. We relax our eyes, our eyelids, we relax the muscles of our forehead. And we allow that sensation of relaxation just to reach the crown of our head. And from there, Use your willpower and objective imagination so that you can see a gentle ray of blue light that descends from the majesty of the cosmos and penetrates through your head and illuminates your lungs with that blue light. In this deep state of relaxation, let's sing together the mantra Om Masi Padme Jom a few times. Om Masi Padme Jom. 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 And taking advantage of the subtleness of this moment, we start an exercise of retrospection. We open ourselves to that which is known. We embrace the principle of spontaneity. And as we retrospect in our day, we look for those false reasonings, for those mental attitudes that perpetuate the internal Pharisee. The innermost never hesitates to show the consciousness everywhere and anywhere where the sophistries were present. As you have seen them, keep them in mind. Divine Father, we give you infinite thanks for this opportunity. We give you infinite thanks for allowing us to bring this wisdom forward. And we beg of you with our soul and our heart that you help keep these memories fresh, available, so that we may have the opportunity to jot down these sophistries, and that as we comprehend that we may invoke of our Divine Mother and turn them into cosmic dust. We ask that all of this materializes according to your will. So be it. And with that, we take a deep breath in 1, 2. And maintaining that deep relaxation, knowing that you can invoke it back at any moment today or in the upcoming days. We take another deep breath in 1, 2. And we open our eyes. Very well. So this has been our practice today with the Sophistries of Distraction. We sure hope that this time was very useful to you. I would like for us, those of you who would have any questions, we can do a brief question and answer session. We will open the microphones and the cameras so that all of you can participate if you choose to do so. But when it comes to this practice, we're completing our practice for today. Thank you everyone for being here with us this evening, and may all beings be happy.